Thank you very much for this change to everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Marialena Dalla, and along with my colleague Aikaterini Ziavrou, we are going to present you a lesson plan aiming at promoting democratic values to young EFL students. Firstly, we will look at the Competencies Reference Framework for Democratic Culture, created by the Council of Europe in order to promote democratic culture among citizens. As we all know, nowadays, school classrooms include students from different cultural backgrounds, which creates the need for teaching competencies for democratic culture to them in order to become active, participative, and responsible individuals. This framework can be implemented in all educational levels and includes 4 categories, as you can see: values, attitudes, skills, knowledge, and critical understanding, which in turn include a total of 20 competencies. These competencies are accompanied by descriptive indicators for learning outcomes and objectives. The relevance of the Competency Framework for Democratic Culture is noteworthy in the educational process, as it provides a systematic approach to planning teaching, learning, as well as assessment. Here you can see the diagram of the reference framework of competencies for democratic culture as designed by the Council of Europe. In particular, under the category of values, we see competencies such as valuing human dignity and human rights, valuing cultural diversity, but also democracy, justice, and equality. In the attitudes category, we see competencies such as openness to cultural otherness, respect, tolerance, and civic awareness. The next category is that of skills and includes competencies such as autonomous learning, empathy, cooperation, and conflict resolution, communication, as well as multilingual skills. Finally, we have knowledge and critical understanding with reference to critical understanding to oneself, critical understanding of language and communication, and knowledge and critical evaluation of the world. The aim of all these competencies is to assist students in participating in today's democratic societies, achieving thus intercultural dialogue. The competencies for democratic civilization are used flexibly depending on the circumstances and the particular context. Thus, they can be linked to the subject matter of each course, even if the lesson itself is not purely related to citizenship education. Moving on to the storytelling technique, it is well known that children are naturally involved in the practice of storytelling from a really young age in their home environment, making storybooks an important part of the teaching process of early English as a foreign language education as well. Through stories, children are exposed to rich language, boosting vocabulary and comprehension, while also sparking imagination and emotional growth. Moreover, storytelling is not just a linguistic tool, but also a vehicle for encouraging critical thinking and raising awareness about social issues in the EFL classroom. Furthermore, based on the multiliteracies framework, Ferris, Moore, and Coyle suggest that storytelling can encourage reflection, discussion, and the exploration of values like fairness, identity, and inclusion, showing the potential of storytelling to bridge language learning with personal growth. Moreover, techniques like drama, creative questioning, and role play help bring stories to life and relate them to students' everyday realities. When stories present themes like equality, diversity, or ethical dilemmas, they prompt students to think critically and empathize with other individuals. These are key competencies for democratic competencies. Last but not least, storytelling encouraging sharing, collaboration, and the exploration of diverse viewpoints, fostering a respectful and inclusive classroom.
Now, let's move on to the implementation of the lesson plan. It was implemented in a public primary school in the region of Attica, in a class of 18 students attending the 2nd grade of primary school, meaning that they were 7 to 8 years old and their English level is pre-A1. The duration of the lesson is 45 minutes and the topic is friendship and respect. The whole lesson is based on the Aesop's myth called The Lion and the Mouse. The lesson begins with a pre-reading stage where the teacher introduces key vocabulary from the story, like the lexical items lion, roar, paw, mouse, nibble, trap, etc. Moving on to the while reading stage, the teacher narrates the first part of the story while using voice modulation to make the storytelling engaging. The teacher asks factual questions like who is sleeping, why is the lion angry, to check comprehension and encourage students to retell parts of the story. Students are then asked to predict what will happen next. In the second part of the while reading stage, the teacher continues with the rest of the story. Students compare their earlier predictions against the story and answer further questions such as, what does the lion say to the mouse? How does that make the mouse feel? What does the mouse do to help the lion? And are they friends now? Afterwards, the teacher discusses the meaning of friendship and invites students to share who their friends are and why. The conversation highlights the importance of caring for others, sharing, apologizing, and embracing differences. In the next part of the while reading stage, students are divided into 6 groups, and each group draws a different scene from the story. Next, the class works together to place the drawings in the correct sequence to retell the full story. In the post-reading stage, students pair up to role-play 2 scenes from the story. First, when the mouse begs the lion for its life, and second, when the lion apologizes after being saved. The lesson plan adopts the division that Heads proposes, containing 3 stages: the pre, the while, and the post-reading stage, which facilitates students to tackle and comprehend the text in a sequential manner. The pre-reading activity introduces key vocabulary through flashcards using the projector of the classroom. Visual multimedia helps students recall the new lexical items as well as facilitate reading comprehension. The aim of this activity is to help learners activate schemata and establish a reason for reading, arousing their interest in the topic and setting the basis for future work after the reading task is completed. During the while reading stage, the story is presented to the students through a projector as an electronic book. The questions that the teacher asks students in this stage facilitate reading comprehension and allow students to narrate the story one more time through their answers. Moreover, learners have the opportunity to predict the next part of the story, reflect on their anticipated answers about the characters and the plot, and compare their guesses against the story, method which encourages them to read the text actively. The post-reading activity involves a role play in which pupils act out different parts of the story. By adopting a role, students know what they are required to do and what others expect from them, which gives a clear purpose to the activity. In this stage, they develop their linguistic knowledge as they repeat some chunks of language from the story. Now we will move on to the competencies for democratic culture students acquired through the lesson. As for the values, students learn to value human dignity and human rights. Specifically, they are able to argue that human rights should always be protected and respected. Through the story, students share feelings of empathy and understanding for others' emotions, which develops their emotional intelligence and intercultural skills. They understand that human rights are universal and apply to everyone without distinctions, and that they should respect other people in spite of their external differences. As far as attitudes are concerned, students learn respect, meaning that they are able to express respect for other people as equal human beings. They also improve their tolerance of ambiguity, since they can suspend judgments about other people temporarily. Students understand that they must not discriminate against people who are perceived different from themselves, and that they should be open to diversity because everyone's rights are equal. The discussion about friendship supports another attitude, namely civic-mindedness, which is an attitude towards the school community. The lesson requires learners to collaborate with other people for common interest causes, for example, creating and sequencing parts of the story, which in turn fosters a feeling of belonging to and identification with the community. One of the skills acquired through the lesson is empathy, since learners are able to express sympathy for the bad things that they have seen happen to other people. The role-play activity develops the learners' empathy since they put themselves in the character's shoes and share their experiences. As a result, they develop emotional intelligence and cultivate feelings of respect, acceptance, and equality. Lastly, the skill of cooperation is also enhanced as learners are able to build positive relationships with other people in a group and work to build consensus to achieve group goals. The fact that they have to cooperate with each other to effectively complete the activities promotes constructive communication among them and cultivates positive attitudes free from prejudices. The assessment of students' knowledge and skills in the particular lesson was achieved through a self-assessment form. Through self-assessment, students achieve higher academic performance and deeper learning. Apart from students, teachers can also identify the students' cognitive level and can improve their teaching strategies. The self-assessment method promotes the development of students' metacognitive strategies as well as their autonomy. Students learn how to learn and critically filter the knowledge provided to them. The evaluation of the course was completed with a validity interview through open-ended questions with the English teacher of the class. Two indicative questions and their responses from the teacher are: do you think this lesson helps students understand the value of respecting diversity? The teacher answered, the story is perfect for this age group and the role play definitely helped in understanding diversity in an experiential way. Another question is, do you think this lesson can be easily implemented in the classroom? Did you find any of the required materials difficult to use? The response from the teacher was that the educational materials are not difficult to use, but it may be difficult to print such a large volume of materials on a daily basis, since the supplies in Greek schools are limited. The structure of the course was easy to follow and can be implemented in the future even with higher level students. From the responses, it is evident that this lesson can lead to the acquisition of skills for democratic culture, which was a key objective. Students were actively involved in the learning process and the educational materials used retained their interest throughout the teaching learning process. To conclude, promoting democratic values within the English language classroom is essential in today's multicultural and interconnected world. The lesson plan presented in this study offers students learning opportunities to go beyond language acquisition and linguistic abilities. In fact, it fosters key values such as respect for diversity, empathy, civic-mindedness, and cooperation. Overall, this study demonstrates that the English language classroom can be a dynamic space for cultivating democratic culture, preparing students to be active, respectful, and empathetic citizens of tomorrow's societies. Future applications of this lesson plan could involve adapting it for different age groups and language proficiency level, further extending the scope and impact of democratic education in English language learning contexts. This is the list of references, and thank you for your attention.